I didn't believe in fate. That's important. You need to understand that before anything else. I was the kind of person who triple-checked the locks at night, who kept receipts organized by month, who didn't trust horoscopes or coincidences or anything that smelled remotely like destiny. Life to me was cause and effect, nothing more. You do something, something happens back. Simple. Which is why I still don't have a good explanation for the diary. It arrived on a Tuesday. There was nothing unusual about that particular day at first. The sky was the dull gray off-white concrete, the kind that pressed low against the rooftops like it might collapse at any moment. I'd left work early because of a migraine, the sharp, pulsing kind that makes light feel like needles behind your eyes. I remember unlocking my apartment door and immediately noticing the smell. Paper, not just bookshelf old, but something deeper like damp cardboard and attic dust, like something that had been forgotten somewhere it shouldn't have been for a very long time. I froze just inside the doorway. I live alone. I'm careful about that fact. Always have been. The smell lingered, subtle but unmistakable, threading through the still air of my apartment like a warning.
Hello?
I called, my voice sounding thinner than I intended. No answer. Of course there wasn't. I stepped inside anyway, closing the door behind me with a quiet click that felt louder than it should have. My apartment looked exactly as I'd left it that morning, keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, dishes drying on the rack, the couch blanket folded in its usual neat rectangle. But the smell, it was stronger near the kitchen. I followed it slowly, each step deliberate, my pulse beginning to climb. Not panic, not yet, but something adjacent to it. Awareness. A tightening dawned, and that's when I saw it. The diary was sitting on my kitchen table, just sitting there. Centered. As if it had been placed carefully, intentionally, by someone who wanted it to be noticed immediately. I stopped a few feet away from the table. I was absolutely certain it hadn't been there that morning. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a fact. I ate breakfast at that table every day. I would have seen it. The diary itself looked wrong. That's the only word that fits. It wasn't particularly large, maybe the size of a standard notebook, but its cover was a dark, faded brown, the leather cracked in a way that suggested age, but not natural age. The surface was warped, as if it had been exposed to heat or moisture or something worse. There were no markings on the cover, no title, no initials, just a thin elastic band wrapped around it, holding it shut. I didn't touch it, not at first. Instead, I did what any rational person would do. I checked the apartment. Closet, bathroom, under the bed, behind the shower curtain. I even opened the cabinets, as if someone could have folded themselves into the space beneath the sink. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No open windows. No missing items, just the diary. Waiting. When I came back to the kitchen, it felt like it had shifted somehow, not physically, not in any measurable way, but its presence had grown heavier, more defined. Like it was aware of me now. That's ridiculous, I muttered. I forced myself to move closer. Close. The smell of old paper was overwhelming. It had that dry, brittle scent, mixed with something faintly metallic like rust, or old coins or blood. I hesitated. There's a moment sometimes where your instincts are louder than your thoughts, where something deep in your chest says don't, not in words, but in a raw, visceral pull backward. I felt that. Strong. I ignored it. I reached out and picked up the diary. It was heavier than it looked. The leather was warm. That was the first thing that truly unsettled me. Room temperature. Not cool from sitting untouched. Warm. Like someone had been holding it just moments before I walked in. I dropped it. It hit the table with a dull thud. The sound oddly soft, as if the pages inside were thicker than they should be. Okay, I whispered, more to myself than anything else. Okay. Think. There had to be an explanation. The landlord entering while I was gone? No. I would have been notified. A friend? No one had a key. A mistake? Delivered to the wrong apartment? But there was no packaging, no label, nothing to suggest it had been shipped. It was just there, and somehow impossibly. I knew it was meant for me. I don't know how I knew that. I just did. After a long minute, I reached for it again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I pulled the elastic band off and opened the cover. The first page was blank, yellowed, slightly brittle, but empty. I flipped to the next. Also blank. For a moment, I almost laughed. The tension cracked just slightly, enough for reason to slip back in. Maybe it was just an old notebook. Maybe someone had done. I turned to the third page, and saw the handwriting. My handwriting. I froze. It wasn't similar. It wasn't close. It was exact. Every curve, every slant, every slight inconsistency in the way I formed certain letters, it was mine. Unmistakably, I stared at the page, my mind struggling to reconcile what my eyes were seeing. At the top, written in neat, careful script, were the words, "If you're reading this, it's already too late." A cold sensation spread through my chest. Slow and heavy, I flipped back to the previous pages. Blank. Forward again. More writing. More writing. Lines and lines of it, filling the pages in tight. Controlled handwriting that never wavered. Mine. All mine. "No," I whispered. I shook my head, as if that alone could undo what I was seeing. "This is no. No, that's not possible." My fingers trembled as I turned another page. The entries were dated. That's what made it worse. Because the first date hadn't happened yet. It was from 3 days in the future. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "This is a joke," I said aloud, though my voice lacked conviction.
Someone's messing with me.
But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Because the next line I read made my stomach drop. "You're going to check the locks again after this. You won't feel safe anymore, not really." I slowly turned my head toward the apartment door. The locks, I hadn't checked them yet. Since coming inside. Faint, creeping dread began to coil in my chest. I looked back at the diary. The next line, "Go ahead. Check them. It won't help." My hands were shaking now. The laugh bubbled up, sharp and strained. "No," I said.
No.
"I'm not," but I was already moving, crossing the room, reaching the door. My fingers brushed the lock. It was secure, deadbolt engaged, chain in place. Exactly as it should be. I stood there for a long moment, staring at it. Then slowly, I turned back toward the kitchen. The diary was still there. Open, waiting. And for the first time I felt it, not just unease, not just confusion, but something deeper, something colder. The realization that whatever had written those words knew me, not in a general way, not like a stranger guessing, but intimately, precisely, as if it had already lived through everything I was about to experience. I walked back to the table, each step heavier than the last. And I kept reading. I should have stopped reading. That's the thing I come back to now. Over and over, as if there was still some point where all this could have been avoided. A clean exit, a sensible choice. Close the diary, walk out off the apartment, call the police, call a locksmith, call a doctor, call anyone. But the truth is, by then I was already caught, not because I believed it, because I needed to prove it wrong. I sat back down at the kitchen table with the diary open in front of me, my pulse hammering in my throat. The overhead light buzzed faintly above me, a cheap fluorescent hum I'd never noticed before. It sounded insectile now. I became aware of every tiny noise in the apartment, the refrigerator cycling on, the soft ticking of the wall clock, the whisper of rain beginning against the window over the sink. The entry on the page continued in my handwriting, neat and calm, as if written by Simeone with all the time in the world. "You'll think this is a prank for another 7 minutes. Then the hallway light outside your apartment will go out, and you'll start to understand." I looked immediately toward the front door, even though I couldn't see the hallway from the kitchen. I checked the microwave clock. 6:14 p.m. 7 minutes, I whispered. I should say here that I'm not superstitious. I don't assign meaning to ordinary things. Lights go out. Bulbs die. Buildings have electrical issues. But once a thought roots itself in your mind, it starts feeding on everything around it. It makes the ordinary feel staged. I pushed the diary away from me and stood. No, I wasn't doing this. I wasn't going to sit there like an idiot waiting for some cheap prediction to come true just because I'd read it. I grabbed my phone and called Nina. If there was one person who could yank me back into reality, it was her. Nina had known me since university. She had a practical voice, a smoker's laugh, and a habit of reducing every crisis to its most embarrassing proportions. If I told her I'd found a haunted journal in me apartment, she'd tell me I was dehydrated and should eat a banana. That's what I needed. The call rang 3 times, then voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message. I tried texting instead. Something weird is happening. Call me when you can. The message sat there for a few seconds, then failed to send. I frowned. No signal. That made no sense. I always had service in the apartment. I moved to the window. Held the phone higher. One bar flickered, then vanished. Rain tracked down the glass in trembling lines, blurring the city lights into pale smears. The building across from mine seemed further away than usual, its windows dim and watery through the storm. I turned back toward the kitchen table. The diary lay open exactly where I'd left it, the pages slightly curled. I hadn't noticed before, but the edges weren't just yellowed, they were darkened in places, as if thumbed too often by dirty hands. Or singed. I checked the time again, 6:19.5 minutes. I laughed once under my breath, though there was no humor in it.
Fine,
I muttered. Let's wait. I walked to the front door and looked through the peephole. The hallway outside was empty. Long and narrow, washed in the weak amber light that made the carpet look stained even when it wasn't. Mrs. Lindstrom's potted fern sat outside her door 3 apartments down, drooping as usual. Nothing strange. Nothing waiting. Still, I didn't like how the hallway looked through the peephole, warped, stretched at the edges as if distance bent incorrectly in that small fisheye circle. It made my own floor seem unfamiliar. I stepped away and checked the locks again. Deadbolt. Chain. Knob lock. Secure. 620. I waited. The fluorescent light above the kitchen buzzed and buzzed and buzzed. The rain tapped harder at the windows. Somewhere in the building, pipes knocked once inside the wall. 621. Nothing. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. And then, from the other side of the door, I heard a soft click. Not at my lock. Side. The hallway light. A second later, the strip of illumination beneath my front door vanished. Darkness filled the gap. I stopped breathing for a few terrible seconds. I just stood there, staring at the black line under the door. Then my eyes snapped to the diary on the table. My scalp prickled. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, the air denser, as if the walls had inched inward without making a sound. Just a coincidence. It had to be. My rational mind was still there, still trying. But it sounded farther away now. I crossed back to the table on unsteady legs and read the next line. Don't open the door when you hear the knocking. And as if the words themselves had summoned it, 3 knocks. Slow. Measure. From the other side of the door. I jerked so violently my chair scraped the floor. The sound of those knocks was wrong. I know how that sounds. A knock is a knock. Wood, hand, impact. But this was muted somehow, like the person outside wasn't using knuckles. Like they were tapping with something softer. Or weaker. 3 more knocks. My mouth went dry.
Who is it?
I called. No answer. I hated how small my voice sounded. I cleared my throat and tried again, louder this time. Who is it? Silence. Then from the other side of the door came a voice so quiet I almost thought I imagined it.
Don't.
I went completely stilled. It was my voice. Not similar. Mine. The same cadence. The same low register that went rough when I was afraid. The same breath catching slightly on the consonants. Every hair on my arms lifted. I stared at the door, unable to move. The voice came again, barely audible through the wood. Don't open it. My knees felt weak. Behind me, the fluorescent light flickered once, then steadied. I turned, slowly, back toward the table. The diary remained open, and there, at the bottom of the page, was a line I swear had not been there before. The ink looked fresher than the rest. Darker. Wet enough to shine under the kitchen light. That was the first time you heard yourself outside the door. I stumbled backwards so hard I hit the counter. The diary trembled on the table, though maybe that was just my vision shaking. My heart was slamming so violently it hurt. I wanted to look away from the page, but I couldn't. The sentence sat there with awful patience, as if it had been waiting specifically for my eyes. I'd read enough horror novels to know what this was supposed to feel like. But fiction always leaves room between you and the terror. A layer of glass. A narrative, a buffer. This had none. This was immediate, physical. My own body had turned traitor, sweating, shaking, flooding with adrenaline, while my mind flailed uselessly for any explanation that didn't sound insane. Someone outside the door was imitating. Someone had written in my handwriting. Someone had gotten into my apartment. None of those possibilities were good. But they were still better than the alternative. The alternative was impossible. 3 more knocks. I flinched, then the voice again, this time clearer. Please, it said. If you open the door now, you'll see me. A sound escaped me, half gasp, half choke. Because the terror wasn't in the words. It was in the tone. DTS sounded exhausted in pain. Crying, but trying not to, as if whatever was outside had already been through something so bad it no longer had the strength to panic. And it was me. I pressed both hands flat against the counter to steady myself. "This isn't real," I said aloud. No response. I grabbed my phone again and tried Nina one more time. No signal. I tried emergency services. The call failed instantly. Rain battered the window now. The apartment lights dimmed for half a second and then returned. In the brief dip of illumination, every shadow in the room seemed to jump closer, the gap beneath the couch, the dark mouth of the hallway to the bathroom, the corners near the ceiling. I realized suddenly that I could smell that old paper. Scent again. Stronger than before. Not just from the diary. From the hall. From under the door. Like a library left underwater. Like pages rotting in a sealed room. 3 more. Knocks. Still slow. Still deliberate. I moved toward the door before I consciously decided to. 1 step. Then another. The voice outside was silent now. My breathing sounded too loud at the door. I bent slowly and looked through the peephole. At first I saw only darkness, then movement. A figure standing very close to the door, too close for the lens to make sense of it. Just fragments. The blurred suggestion of a shoulder, part of a cheek, hair plastered wetly Toscan. Then the figure shifted back. And I saw the face. Mine. Older. Not by years, by something worse. My face, but thinned, sharpened by stress and sleeplessness. Skin waxy and gray with fatigue. Lips split. One side of the forehead marked by a dark bruise that disappeared in toth hairline. Eyes ringed so deeply with shadow they looked bruised too, and the expression God. It was my expression when I'd reached the hospital after my father died. That numb, stretched look of someone whose fear had burned so long it had passed through panic and out the other side, into something hollow. The figure outside raised one trembling hand to the door, against the worked circle of the peephole. I saw my own fingers, and written across the palm in black ink were 2 words. Don't. Listini reeled back so fast I nearly fell. At that exact second, something moved behind me in the apartment. A reflection. In the dark screen of the microwave. I saw it only for an instant. But I saw enough. A person standing at the end of the hallway that led to my bedroom. Tall. Still. Head slightly tilted. Watching me. I spun around. The hallway was empty. The bedroom beyond was dark. My entire body went cold in a single sweeping wave. The kind of cold that doesn't touch the skin first, but the marrow. Very slowly I turned back toward the microwave. Nothing there now except my own reflection, pale and distorted in the black glass. But the diary page had changed again. There was fresh writing now, more of it blooming across the paper in that calm, hateful script. You looked away from the hallway too quickly. You shouldn't have done that. Now it knows you saw it. My stomach lurched. The knock stopped. Not faded. Stop. The silence they left behind was somehow worse. The rain outside continued, but it sounded muffled now, distant. The buzz of the kitchen light had gone quiet too. I looked up and realized with a slow swell of dread that the apartment had become unnaturally still. No refrigerator hum. No pipe noise. No building sounds. Nothing. It was as if the whole world beyond my walls had been wrapped in insulation. Then the voice outside the door spoke one last time, and this time it sounded urgent, terrified. "Whatever you do," it whispered, "don't let it make you read the last pages." A violent pounding erupted from the bedroom. Not knocking, something hitting the inside of the bedroom wall hard enough to rattle the framed picture in the hall. Once. Twice. Third time. Louder. Wet. "Furious!" I screamed. There was no dignity left in it, no restraint. Just raw sound ripped out of me as I stumbled backward away from the hallway, away from the bedroom, away from the thing I couldn't see but could suddenly feel something awake inside my apartment. Something that had been quiet only because it was waiting for the exact right moment to let me know it was there. The diary lay open on the kitchen table, waiting for me to keep going. And from down the dark hallway, something scraped slowly across the floor. Coming closer. The scraping sound didn't stop. It wasn't loud. That was the worst part. It was soft, slow, deliberate, like something heavy being dragged across the floor inch by inch. Not rushed, not frantic. Patient. Like it knew I wasn't going anywhere. I backed away from the hallway until my lower back hit the kitchen counter. My breath came in short, sharp bursts that barely seemed to fill my lungs. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. Front door. Something wearing my face. Bedroom. Something worse, and the diary still open. Still writing. The ink crawled across the page as I watched. Letters forming with sickening precision as if an invisible hand pressed each word into existence. It's coming out now. You can hear how it moves. You always remember that sound. I'm not doing this, I whispered. This isn't happening. But the words felt thin, meaningless. The scraping grew louder. Closer. Something brushed the hallway wall with a soft, dragging thud. Then came a new sound. Breathing. Wet. Uneven. As if whatever was there had lungs but didn't quite know how to use them properly. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stop myself from making noise. The hallway remained dark. The bedroom beyond it a black mouth swallowing light. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips and my throat behind my eyes. Every nerve felt exposed. Then a shape moved just at the edge of the hallway. Low to the ground. Too low. It didn't step forward. It slid, like its limbs weren't bending correctly. I gagged, the sound muffled behind my hand.
No.
No, no, no. The diary page shifted again. More words. Don't look directly at it yet. You're not ready for that. My eyes snapped to the table, then back to the hallway. Too late. I had already seen enough to know. It wasn't human. Not anymore. The thing dragged itself forward into the weak spill of kitchen. Light. At looked like me. But wrong. Horribly wrong. Its body was twisted. Joints bent at unnatural angles, as if it had been broken and set incorrectly over and over again. Its arms were too long, fingers splayed and scraping the floor like claws that had forgotten they were once hands. Its face stretched. Pulled tight across the bone, lips split into a permanent trembling grin that showed too many teeth. Not more teeth, just too much of them. The gums exposed. The mouth apanned wider than it should, and the eyes, they were mine. That was the worst part. Not empty. Not black. Not monstrous. Mind. Wide. Aware. Watching me. Recognizing me. As if something inside that thing was still there. Still thinking. Still remembering. A thin, broken sound escaped its throat. A laugh. Or something trying to be one. My knees buckled. I caught myself on the counter, fingers digging painfully into the edge. This is me, I whispered. The realization hit like a physical blow. This is me. The diary confirmed it before I could even finish the thought. Yes, this is what you become if you keep reading. My head snapped toward the table.
What?
What do you mean if I keep reading? The ink shifted again. You thought the diary was telling the future. Isn't. It's leading you to it. A cold wave of understanding washed over me. Fate. Not prediction. Instruction. Every page I read wasn't warning me. It was guiding me. No, I said, shaking my head violently.
No, that's no, I can stop. I can just. The thing in the hallway jerked forward suddenly. I screamed.
Stumbling back, it moved faster now. Not dragging. Crawling. Limbs snapping into motion was sickening. Wet pops as it surged toward the kitchen. My own face lunged closer, that horrible grin stretching wider as it opened its mouth and spoke. Don't stop, it rasped. My voice ripped apart. Layered with something else underneath, something deeper, like another throat speaking at the same time. Please, it whispered, and for one horrifying second it sounded sane. Pleading. Tears streamed from its eyes. I tried, it said. I tried to stop. Its head snapped sideways with a violent crack. The grin returned instantly, wider, wronger. But it gets inside you, it finished, voice distorting, stretching into something inhuman. I stumbled backward again until I hit the wall. The diary pages flipped on their own. Rapid. Violent. Stopping. Somewhere near the end, I didn't touch it. I didn't want to. But my eyes moved anyway. Drawn. Pulled. The final pages were filled. Not with calm. Neat handwriting. With frantic, jagged scrawls. Ink smeared. Words scratched over each other. The writing of someone losing control. My writing. It's not a diary. It's a door. Every word you read opens. Mori shook my head, squeezing my eyes shut.
No.
No. The thing in front of me slammed one hand against the floor and pulled itself closer. Too close. I could smell it now. That same old paper scent, but rotten, wet, mixed with something sour and metallic. Decay. Don't read the last page, it said again, voice trembling, flickering between human and something else. That's when Edith's mouth snapped shut. Tardar. Blood welled at the corners. Then it smiled again.
That's when it sees you, it finished.
Voice no longer its own. Behind me something shifted. Not in the hallway. Not in the kitchen. Behind me. From the direction of the front door. Presence. Turned slowly. Lock still in place. But the space around it felt wrong. Like the air itself had. Thickened. Like something enormous was pressing against the other side. Not physically. Not yet. Aware. Watching. Waiting. The diary's final page turned on its own. Slow. Deliberate. I tried to look away. I couldn't. The words on the last page were written cleanly. Calmly. No panic. No mess. Just a single paragraph.
When you finish reading
it will finally know where you are. Not just in the apartment. Not just in time. But you. All of you. Every version. Every moment. And it will begin. The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the apartment. For a split second. There was silent stunting move. Not crawling. Dragging. Everywhere. At once. The thing in front of me screamed a raw, tearing sound that split into multiple voices mid-cree. As if something inside it was being pulled apart. From the front door came a low, deep sound. Not a knock. A voice. Something vast trying to press itself into a space too small to contain it. The walls creaked. The air warped. And in the pitch black, I felt it something brushing against my mind. Not thoughts. Not words. Awareness. Like a hand running across every memory I had ever made. Every fear. Every moment. Seeing. Learning. And then the light snapped. Back on. Everything stopped. The thing in front of me was gone. The hallway empty. The apartment silent. Again. Normal. Except the diary was closed. The elastic band wrapped neatly around it. And on the cover, carved into the leather in deep, fresh grooves, were 3 words. I see you. I didn't touch the diary. Immediately. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at it like it might move again if I blinked too long. The apartment had returned to its ordinary shape, light steady. Rain soft against the window, the faint hum of appliances creeping back in like nothing had happened. Like everything hadn't just broken, but something had changed. Not outside, inside me. The pressure, a presence. Subtle, but undeniable. Like a second awareness layered just beneath my own thoughts. Watching. Waiting. Learning. I swallowed hard and forced myself to move. Slowly, carefully, I approached the table again. The diary sat exactly where it had been, closed now, quiet, almost harmless in its stillness. But I knew better. I could feel it, that pull. Not physical. Mental. Like standing too close to a ledge and feeling the urge to jump, not because you want Toady, but because something deep in your brain wants to test the possibility. That's what the diary felt like now. A possibility. I reached out. Stopped. Pulled my hand back. No, I whispered. I wasn't going to open it again. I didn't need to. I understood now. It wasn't about knowing what would happen. It was about making it happen. Every word was a step forward. Page. A door opened wider, and something vast and patient was waiting on the other side. I backed away from the table. One step, then another. I grabbed my coat from the chair. My keys. Phone. I didn't bother checking the signal again. I just needed to leave. Now. Before a thought interrupted me. Not mine. Clear. Sharp. Perfectly formed. You already finished it. I froze. My breath caught. No, I said immediately.
No, I didn't.
I didn't read the last page. I stopped you. Read enough. The voice wasn't a voice. It had no sound. It was just there. Inside my head, and it knew exactly how to speak in a way that bypassed doubt. My hands began to shake. That doesn't mean anything, I said, though my voice wavered. I'm leaving. That's it. I'm Adone. I turned toward the door, unlocked the deadbolt, slid the chain free. My fingers hovered over the knob, behind me. The diary made a soft sound, a page turning. I didn't look. I couldn't. Don't, I whispered to myself. Just leave. I opened the door. The hallway was lit again. Normal. Empty. Mrs. Lindstrom's fern still drooped in its pot. Nothing waiting. Nothing wrong. Relief flooded through me so fast it made me dizzy. I stepped out into the hallway. The air felt different out here, cooler, thinner, cleaner. I sucked in a breath like someone who had just surfaced from deep water. Okay, I muttered.
Okay, you're fine. Just go downstairs, get outside.
Call Simeone. I pulled the door closed behind me. The lock clicked, and for a moment, everything felt almost normal again. Then I noticed the sound. Faint. Muffled. Coming from inside my apartment. Scraping. My stomach dropped.
No, I whispered.
No. He stepped back toward the door instinctively. Hand rising toward the knob, then I stopped. The memory hit me all at once. The diary. The warning. The thing inside. Something else. Something else. Something worse. Slowly. Toward the hallway. Toward the far end. And that's when I saw it. The hallway wasn't empty anymore. It stretched. Longer than it should. Far longer. The stairwell door was still there, but distant now. Too distant, as if the building itself had unfolded into something deeper, and along the walls doors, more doors. Then there should be. My breath hitched. I lived on a floor with 6 apartments. There were now at least 20. All. Identical. All closed, except one. Halfway down the hall. That door stood slightly ajar, the thin strip of darkness. Visible inside, then from within that darkness a smell, old paper. Rotting.
No, I said.
No, I'm not doing this. I turned, intending to run the other way toward the stairs. Toward anything familiar. But when I looked, the hallway behind me had changed 2. More. Doors. More distance. The exit gone. Replaced by the same repeating pattern. Endless. My chest tightened. This isn't real, I whispered. But the thought sounded weak now. Because I understood I hadn't left. Not really. The diary hadn't just opened something in my apartment. It had opened something around me. Day A. Space. A layer. Something that existed alongside everything else. Then I was inside it now. The door behind me creaked. Slowly. I turned. My apartment door was opening just slightly. From the darkness inside. A hand emerged. My hand. Bruised. Shaking. The older version of me leaned into the gap, face pale, eyes frantic. Listen to me, he whispered urgently. You still have a chance. His expression changed instantly. The panic drained, replaced by that same stretched, wrong smile. No, you don't, he finished. The door slammed shut. I stumbled back, heart racing.
No, I said.
No, I'm not trapped. I'm not. A voice interrupted. From behind me. Calm. Measured. Familiar.
I said that too.
I turned slowly, and there I was, standing in the hallway. Another version. Not broken like crawling one. Not desperate like the one at the door. This one was still. Composed. Eyes tired. But clear. Like someone who had already accepted something irreversible. You shouldn't have read it, he said quietly. I stared at him, unable to speak. You think this is the worst part, he continued. It's not. My throat tightened.
What is this? He tilted his head slightly.
This, he said, gesturing around us, is where it keeps you? Who? A faint smile. You'll understand. I shook my head violently.
No.
No, I'm not staying here. I'm getting out. There has to be a way out. There is, he said. Hope flared, sharp and sudden. How? He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, give it someone else. The words hit like ice water.
Why?
That's how it works. It needs to be read. It needs someone to pen the door. You can't close it, but you can pass it on. My stomach twisted.
No, I said immediately.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not giving this to someone else. His expression didn't change. You will. No, you already have. I froze.
Whoa.
He stepped closer. Think, he said softly. Think about the last thing you did before you left the apartment. My mind raced. I grabbed my coat, my keys, my phone, and then a memory surfaced. Small, inconsequential at the time. I had picked up the diary. Just for a second. Just to move it. To the edge of the table. Without thinking. Without realizing. My breath hitched. My hands. I had touched it. After. The last page. After it. No, I whispered. Understanding crashed into me. My phone. I had held my phone after that. Typed on it. Sent a message. Or tried to. Nina. My fingers went numb.
No. Yes.
My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked down. Signal. Full. One new message from Nina. My vision blurred as I opened it. Hey, just got home. Weird thing. Someone left a journal outside my door. I think it's yours. It has your handwriting in it. My knees gave out. I collapsed to the floor, the hallway tilting around me. No, I breathed.
No, another message. I opened it. What is this?
The other me crouched in front of me, meeting my gaze. This is the part where you understand, he said gently. My phone buzzed again. If you're reading this, it's already too late. I let out a broken sound. Stop, I whispered, Dot, but it didn't stop. But never stops, Da, because somewhere in another apartment on another table the diary is open again, Don, and someone is reading.